The Arab Spring, a journey through change in the Middle East. Welcome, everyone. Today, we embark on a journey through one of the most transformative periods in recent history, the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring is a series of anti-government protests, uprisings, and widespread demonstrations, including armed resistance, that began in late 2010 and fundamentally altered the political landscape of the Middle East and North Africa. These events revealed both the aspirations and challenges of societies striving for freedom, dignity, and justice. So, what drives people to rise against long-standing systems of governance? How does a single act of protest ignite regional movements for change? These questions lie at the heart of the Arab Spring. In this discussion, we'll explore the origins of these uprisings, their progression across the region, especially in Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Syria, and Yemen, the role of global and regional powers, and their enduring legacy. So let's get started. Chapter 1: Origins of the Arab Spring. The spark of the Arab Spring was ignited on December 17, 2010, in Sidi Bouzid, a small town in Tunisia, when Mohamed Bouazizi, a 26-year-old university graduate, engaged in a powerful act of protest by setting himself on fire. He had been trying to support his family by selling fruits and vegetables from a cart, but he faced repeated challenges from authorities demanding bribes. When he refused to pay, the town authorities confiscated his cart and subjected him to physical abuse, insults, and humiliation. His tragic act highlighted the economic struggles and systemic issues affecting many, resonating deeply with individuals in Tunisia and across the region. It triggered a wave of movements demanding change, marking the onset of the Arab Spring. The origins of the Arab Spring were not solely about this one event, but were deeply rooted in long-standing issues. Many Arab countries had been under autocratic regimes for decades, with power often concentrated in family dynasties or military control. These governments maintained authority through censorship, surveillance, and violent repression of dissent. Economic benefits, despite substantial oil wealth in some nations, were unevenly distributed, leaving many citizens struggling with unemployment, inequality, and a lack of opportunities. Young people, in particular, faced a bleak future, fueling widespread disillusionment. A pivotal factor in 2010 was the rise of social media. Platforms like Facebook and Twitter allowed people to organize, share frustrations, and amplify their voices beyond state-controlled media. This technological shift enabled grassroots movements to gain momentum in ways that were previously unimaginable. Social media became a vital tool for activists to coordinate protests, share real-time updates, and mobilize supporters across borders. Videos and images from the ground spread rapidly, capturing the world's attention and increasing pressure on regimes. The Arab Spring was the culmination of systemic issues and the collective determination of people seeking change. As protests spread across Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Syria, and beyond, they reflected broader regional trends. A desire for reform, an end to autocracy, and a challenge to entrenched systems of power. The Arab Spring became a symbol of the struggle for freedom, dignity, and justice, marking a turning point in the region's history. Chapter 2: The Uprisings Spread. The protests quickly spread from Tunisia to other parts of the Middle East and North Africa. In Tunisia, the movement led to the resignation of President Ben Ali in January 2011, followed by the country's first free elections later that year. Tunisia remains a rare example of a successful transition toward democratic governance, though economic challenges persist, highlighting the ongoing struggle for sustainable reforms. In Egypt, millions gathered in Tahrir Square in January 2011, demanding an end to President Hosni Mubarak's three-decade rule. After 18 days of demonstrations, Mubarak stepped down and elections were held. However, the subsequent years saw increasing political polarization and a return to centralized governance under President el-Sisi, raising questions about the future of Egypt's democratic aspirations. In Libya, protests escalated into a civil war. NATO's intervention in March 2011, under the responsibility to protect R2P doctrine, led to the fall of Muammar Gaddafi, but left the country divided between rival factions. The ensuing chaos and external interventions exacerbated the fragmentation of Libyan society, creating a power vacuum that persists to this day. In Syria, peaceful protests in March 2011 were met with brutal repression by the government of Bashar al-Assad. What began as a crackdown spiraled into a devastating civil war, drawing in multiple domestic and international actors. The conflict led to an unprecedented humanitarian crisis, with hundreds of thousands killed and millions displaced. In Yemen, protests forced President Ali Abdullah Saleh to step down in 2012. However, internal divisions, combined with the rise of the Houthi movement and external interventions by regional powers, led to a devastating civil war. The conflict in Yemen has resulted in one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, with millions suffering from displacement, famine, and disease. Each country's experience during the Arab Spring was shaped by its unique dynamics, yet all reflected broader regional trends: a desire for reform, an end to autocracy, and a challenge to entrenched systems of power. Chapter 3: International and Regional Responses. The Arab Spring highlighted the complexities of global and regional geopolitics, as different actors sought to influence the outcomes of the uprisings. Western countries, including the United States and European powers, expressed support for democratic aspirations, but tempered their responses with strategic interests. In Libya, NATO's intervention, under the principle of responsibility to protect R2P, aimed to protect civilians, but its aftermath raised questions about the consequences of such interventions in fragile states. Libya's post-Gaddafi era has been marked by fragmentation, with rival factions vying for control and continuing instability. Russia and Iran played pivotal roles, particularly in Syria, where they provided crucial support to the Assad government. This backing bolstered Assad's position, but also complicated efforts for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. In Syria, the U.S. initially supported opposition groups, but later shifted its focus to counterterrorism, particularly with the rise of ISIS. The situation highlighted the difficulty of balancing humanitarian objectives with national security concerns. The Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, responded to the uprisings in varying ways. Saudi Arabia and the UAE supported efforts to maintain stability in Egypt and other countries, fearing that uprisings could inspire unrest within their own borders. In contrast, Qatar-backed opposition groups in Libya and Syria, aiming to shape the region's future and assert its influence. Turkey initially supported the Arab Spring uprisings as a model for democratic governance, but later became deeply involved in the Syrian conflict, opposing the Assad regime, supporting opposition groups, and engaging in military interventions to counter Kurdish forces and assert regional influence. The United Nations, through diplomatic mediation and humanitarian aid, attempted to address the crisis. However, its efforts were often hindered by geopolitical divisions, particularly in Syria, where vetoes by Russia and China within the Security Council prevented meaningful intervention. The interplay of these international and regional actors shaped the outcomes of the Arab Spring in profound ways, illustrating the complexities of geopolitical interests in the region. Chapter 4: Legacy and Impact. The legacy of the Arab Spring is diverse and multifaceted. Tunisia remains a beacon of hope for democratic transition, with progress toward governance reforms despite ongoing economic struggles. However, its political system remains fragile, and challenges like corruption persist, reminding us that democracy requires continuous effort. In Egypt, the initial aspirations for democracy gave way to political centralization and a focus on stability. The return of authoritarianism under President el-Sisi has raised questions about the long-term viability of democratic reforms in the region. Libya's post-Gaddafi era has been marked by deep fragmentation, with rival governments and militias vying for control. The continued instability is compounded by external actors' interventions, making a peaceful resolution elusive. Syria has endured immense devastation, with hundreds of thousands killed and millions displaced. The conflict remains unresolved, illustrating the heavy toll of prolonged instability and the difficulties of achieving peace amid regional and international rivalries. In Yemen, the rise of the Houthi movement and the intervention of the Saudi-led coalition have created a humanitarian disaster, with millions facing displacement, famine, and disease. The war has entrenched divisions and exacerbated regional rivalries, making resolution more difficult. The Arab Spring demonstrated the power of grassroots movements, but also underscored the complexities of achieving lasting change. It revealed the deep-seated desires of millions for dignity and justice, but also the challenges of navigating political, social, and economic transformation in a region dominated by entrenched interests. Conclusion and lessons learned. The Arab Spring stands as a testament to the resilience of people seeking freedom and justice. It reminds us that meaningful change is possible, but often requires sustained effort, careful management of transitions, and a commitment to inclusivity. As we reflect on this transformative period, we must recognize the importance of balancing local aspirations with the roles and responsibilities of international and regional actors. The Arab Spring is not just an endpoint. It marks the beginning of an ongoing journey in the Middle East's pursuit of self-determination and justice. Looking ahead, we must ask, what lessons can we learn from the Arab Spring to support positive change while mitigating risks of instability? How can global and regional actors better align with the aspirations of local populations? Through dialogue and understanding, we can learn to navigate the challenges in the pursuit of justice, recognizing that progress requires sustained effort. If you found this content insightful, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing for more discussions on global events and their impact. Thank you for watching.